Hello. In an earlier lesson, we discussed the importance of comparison. In this lesson, we're going to talk about problems in comparison. In particular, we're going to talk about three problems in comparison. The first problem is the double comparison. The second problem in comparison is the illogical comparison. And the third type of comparison is called the same comparison. Some call it other or else comparison. Other or else comparison. So we're going to talk about each one of these and how we can avoid this type of problem. We already know that when we want to compare, we need to use either the comparative form of the adjective or the modifier by adding an er or more before the word the modifier, or we can use it with the superlative when you compare more than two. Superlative by adding est or most. Now if you look at this sentence, the politician is more richer than a surgeon. Now we can clearly see that we're comparing the politician, this is one, comparing him with a surgeon in terms of how rich each one is. So the comparison is using the adjective rich in the comparative form. We know that rich is one syllable adjective, therefore we need to add an er. But sometimes some writers add more in addition to er. This creates a double comparison error. Double comparison error. Which means that we have to only use er and not more in richer. So try to avoid double comparison, or always avoid that because it's an error. Only add est or most, or add er or more, depending on your comparison. The other type of double comparison error is called the illogical comparison. This happens when you compare two things of not the same category. For example, I might say Da Vinci's painting is better than La Pampa. Pampa is a painter. So here I'm using the comparative adjective, which is better. Here, this is called the comparative adjective. And I'm comparing the painting, which is a thing, to a painter. And that's what creates a logical comparison. We cannot compare a painting with a painter. They need to be in the same category. Therefore, we have to modify the sentence by adding La Pampa's painting. By this, I solve the illogical comparison error by comparing a painting with a painting. So in a logical comparison, you have to know that the two things had to be in the same category: a painting with a painting, a person with a person, a plane with a plane, and so on. You cannot compare a plane with a person unless if using that as a metaphor in literature. But here we're talking about academic writing. You have to compare two things of the same category or the same source. We're going to move on to the third type of comparison error, which is in this case the sameness comparison, or some call this other or else comparison. So if I say that jet is better than a plane, in this sentence I'm creating an error because I'm comparing a jet, which is one type of plane, right, with a plane. In this case I'm comparing it to itself, which is a comparison error. To solve this problem, I need to compare this jet with any other jet which is not the same plane. So I can rephrase the sentence as that jet is better than any other plane, or than other planes. Therefore, I solve the problem of comparing a jet with itself. So I'm comparing here the jet with other planes, not the jet with then a plane. The same thing applies to anything. I can say, for example, that student is better than students. Now you can clearly see how logical it is. You cannot just compare a student with students because I'm including the student with itself. So I'm comparing the student with that student. So I need to withdraw the student from this collective students here by adding then other students. So I need to add the adjective here by other students. Or you can say that student is better than anyone else. Okay, so if I say the sentence that person is less aggressive than anyone. Clearly, anyone includes anyone, including that person. In this case, I'm falling into the error of comparing that person with himself or herself. So I need to exclude that person from the group of anyone by adding by then anyone else. By this, I'm excluding that person from the group of or the selective anyone, and therefore I'm avoiding the error of else or other comparison, or what we call a sameness comparison. So let's go back from the beginning. Quick overview of what we explained in this video. So there are three problems with comparison: the double comparison problem, the illogical comparison problem, and the same comparison or sameness comparison, and sometimes some call it the other or else comparison problem. In the double comparison problem, in the comparative or superlative form, ER or more, ESC or most, we only use ER or more. We don't use both of them. You have to use only one. Okay? By using both, we're committing a double comparison error. And the illogical comparison error, it happens when we compare two things not on the same category. So here in this example, we're comparing the painting with a painter, and that creates a problem of logical comparison. Uh, Solving that, we either use the possessive form, like the Pampas painting, or I can use the that clause. Da Vinci's painting is better than that of the Pampa. Okay, so either one would solve the problem. So I can either use possessive to show a relationship of ownership, or I can use that of to solve the problem of illogical comparison. And the last error of other else comparison or sameness comparison, the error is when you compare a thing with its own self or a person with himself included in that category. So here the problem is that the jet is better than the plane, but we know the jet is a plane, so therefore I need to exclude the jet from the other planes. Therefore I can restate that the jet is better than any other plane, or the jet is better than other planes. Similarly, can exclude the student from other students by saying the person or the student is better than other students, or the person is less aggressive than anyone else. So by adding other or else, we excluding the person by comparing himself to himself.